Kabutops is rather infamous because of Ancient Power. If Ancient Power gets that Omni boost, things are about to get deadly. Sadly, Kabutops isn't very good in GSC Undios. It's a thoroughly flawed Pokemon, and more often than not, you're better off using a different Sword Stance Sweeper. It often needs luck to actually pose a decent threat. Kabutops used to be quite valuable, but the tier is more hostile to it now. Its typing leaves it with weaknesses to electric and ground, it lacks good physical stab moves, and it has a poor matchup versus some top threats. Fitting Kabutops onto teams is a major pain. While Kabutops can easily sweep with Ancient Power boosts, it can just as easily get outsped and ravaged without having a chance to do much. Kabutops is very, very inconsistent. Still though, it can be rather dangerous. Against double bug teams, Kabutops is deadly with smart play. If you support Kabutops well, then it can be a decent threat. There's also, of course, Ancient Power. If Kabutops gets Ancient Power's Omni boost, then it can actually just sweep the opposing team. Kabutops does provide a resistance to normal too, and while it isn't great versus Granbull, it helps a lot versus Dodrio. Kabutops is pretty bad, but it's not the worst Sword Stance Sweeper. It's surely better than stupid ass Sandslash. Let's analyse the Shellfish Pocket Monster. Kabutops has a very high attack stat by GSC Undio standards, and access to Sword Stance. It has the second highest attack of anything viable with Sword Stance, behind Pinsir. While Kabutops doesn't hit too hard when boosted, Sword Stance mostly solves this. Mostly. Unfortunately, Kabutops doesn't learn Rock Slide or Earthquake, so its best physical stab moves are Ancient Power and Hidden Power Ground. After a Sword Stance, Kabutops can 2-hit KO most threats. Ancient Power also hits the tier's flying and bug types super effectively, including Gyarados, Pinsir, Dodrio, and Scyther. Scyther in particular is O-code, meaning Kabutops can tank a boosted Hidden Power Ground and KO Scyther back, if it's healthy that is. Kabutops also has Hydro Pump, which immediately 2-hit KOs Nidoqueen and Piloswine. Hydro Pump also deals decent damage to Granbull. In fairness to Kabutops, there is nothing that can counter it reliably, especially when you consider Ancient Power. Ancient Power has a 10% chance to give Kabutops a +1 boost in all of its stats, which can get out of hand very quickly. After an Omni boost, Kabutops outspeeds the whole tier, becomes bulkier, and it hits harder. If Kabutops gets a Sword Stance boost before or after boosting, it can just sweep on the spot, unless your opponent has something like Blossom. Kabutops is rather flimsy, so the best way to set it up is to bring it in on rest from Pokemon like Hypno or Blastoise. Pairing it with Screens or Subpass works too. Kabutops is decent at breaking holds in Pokemon like Hypno, which can be capitalised on by Scyther, Nidoqueen, Piloswine, Mr. Mime, and more. Kabutops' rock typing also grants it a resistance to normal. While Kabutops isn't great versus Granbull, aka the main thing you want a normal resist for, it does great against Dodrio. Kabutops can also branch out its moveset. Hidden Power Bug deals massive damage to Psychic types after a boost. Using it means sacrificing Hidden Power Ground though, which makes Kabutops worse versus Haunter, Magneton, and more. Double Edge is a solid neutral attack, which 2-hit KOs Quagsire, Slowking, and Blastoise after a boost. You should always use Ancient Power, Hydro Pump, and Sword Stance, and make the Hidden Power Ground slot the changeable one. Kabutops can use gimmicky options like Giga Drain, Rest Talk, and Endure plus Flail, but they are all pretty bad, so I wouldn't recommend them. Speaking of pretty bad, Kabutops has major flaws that make it just that. Its best stab move is Ancient Power, which only has 60 base power and 8 PP. Despite Kabutops' high attack stat, it struggles to break Pokemon like Slowbro, Quagsire, and Blastoise reliably. Defensively, Kabutops is rather poor. It's weak to Electric and Ground, two of the most common attacking types in the tier. Its special bulk is also poor. Special attackers like Mr. Mime, Haunter, and Electabuzz can outspeed and ravage Kabutops. Quillfish also loves to switch into Kabutops, use spikes, and then Hydro Pump it before dying, which puts it in range of a KO from special attackers. Pokemon like Blastoise can also tank attacks and retaliate with their own. Outside of normal, Kabutops lacks useful resistances. Its normal resistance isn't that useful anyway, because of its mediocre matchup versus Granbull. Hydro Pump is inaccurate and doesn't deal too much to Granbull. Granbull also uses Rest Talk, which can let it outlast Kabutops and slowly erode it with curse boosted returns. Kabutops is also bad into Hidden Power Ground, Lovely Kiss, and Thunder variants of the Bull. This means you have to pair Kabutops with another normal resist, stacking ground weaknesses and restricting team building. Kabutops can be Curse Talk Ground Bull, but it's far from reliable at doing it. Kabutops often needs luck to actually pose a threat. If it does get Ancient Power boosts, then great, but that's only a 10% chance. Kabutops can be dealt with using Thunder Wave users and faster special attackers. Paralysis users like Hypno can tank an attack from Kabutops and stop any sweeping it wants to do. Fitting Kabutops onto teams is a chore. It provides little defensive utility and stacks weaknesses to electric and ground. And when you do fit it, you get an inconsistent Sword Sun sweeper. Scyther and Pinsir are usually better than Kabutops. They are more consistent, easier to use, and easier to fit onto teams. Unfortunately for Kabutops, it doesn't have much of a place in GSU's modern metagame. In GSU's olden days, the tier was more hospitable for it. Back then, the tier was much less refined and explored, so Kabutops' worst flaws hadn't been exposed yet. Fun fact, in 2021, I was on some weird website with an old GSCU/NU tier list, and Kabutops was actually an NU. It was joined in NU by Granbull for some bizarre reason. Back then, people had no idea how to play and thought everything was good. People used teams with shit like Raichu and Sudowoodo back then. When a tier is less refined, Pokemon's flaws aren't as apparent. When JCE was put into UPL in 2018, Kabutops was still considered pretty good. It saw a decent amount of use in 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. It did the same things it always did, such as Ancient Power sweeping. If you know who Bomber is, he was the guy who always got an Ancient Power boost. He was a legend at that shit. It was his fucking MO. Anyway, after UPL in 2021 though, Kabutops just kinda died. People stopped using it in tours after. People just became more aware of Top's flaws, and JC was more figured out by this point. The tour just went in a direction that didn't benefit Kabutops, since faster special attackers and Quagsire were rampant now. Unfortunately, it's just bad, and it doesn't look like it will pick up in usage anytime soon. It can be dangerous, but it's very inconsistent at that. Just use Scyther or Pinsir over Kabutops, and you'll be fine.